KOGO News Time, 7:12.
Well, remember, we've got a short staff on the Supreme Court right now for the United States, and several cases remain to be decided there this month. All eyes on three particular ones.
Joining us on the KOGO News Live line is legal analyst Byron Henry. And Byron, which three cases are getting the most attention right now?
I think the three cases are the Texas trio of cases, the immigration action case that Texas is a plaintiff in, the abortion case in which Texas is also a party, and then the affirmative action case which comes out of the University of Texas.
Okay, and we'll get to all three of these here individually, but first, remind people what it means when you only have the 8 justices on the court, what happens if there's a tie and things like that.
Well, normally, if you only have 8 justices on the court, you can still dispose of cases in the ordinary course unless the vote on a case to reverse or affirm is 4-4. And in that case, this court simply issues a one-sentence decision that the lower court is affirmed by an equally divided court. So the Supreme Court takes no action. Whatever the lower court ruled stays in effect until another case gets taken that might affect that lower court's ruling. In one of the cases, the affirmative action case, there's actually 7 justices, because not only is the court missing Justice Scalia, who passed away in February, but Justice Kagan is recused because that case goes back to her time in the Solicitor General's office.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay.
That's very interesting. All right. In a nutshell, the immigration case, what is that about?
The immigration case basically has 2 big issues in it, and that's President Obama's sweeping action that he took by executive order, which basically did 2 things. Protected individuals, unlawful aliens here in this country that had citizen children, that had children in this country that were citizens to keep the families together, protected them from deportation, and 2, it gave them legal status or lawful status in this country, or lawful presence, I think is the term, and that allows them to get a driver's license, get work papers, and enjoy other government benefits. And the states sued and said, first of all, you can't do that. You have to have an act of Congress to change people's unlawful status to lawful, and it's going to cost us a lot of money to provide these benefits and whatnot. So they took issue with that and filed a lawsuit against the Obama administration. And 2 courts below have agreed so far, and the Supreme Court is the 3rd court to hear this.
Okay, so the 2 lower courts have agreed. Are you handicapping at all this particular one as we move forward in the summer?
I think probably the Supreme Court is going to find that President Obama, as the president, like presidents of both parties, has the authority to set deportation priorities, meaning who and when gets deported, but I think the court will strike down any effort by the president to change the lawful status or legal status of these residents. I think the court's going to find that President Obama lacked that authority, and that requires an act of Congress.
Okay, let's get to the abortion case.
That's a tough case with Justice Scalia gone and Justice Kennedy sitting sort of in the middle. I think the conservative wing of the court is at a disadvantage, and I think that oral arguments showed that the court was very skeptical of regulations which would basically force women to drive in upwards of 200 miles one way to obtain an abortion. So I think that at least some of the regulations in Texas are in trouble. They may not all be struck down, but certainly there's a group of regulations that the court may find just went too far and posed too much of an obstacle to a woman trying to get an abortion. So I think some of those regulations are probably going to fall at the Supreme Court when it issues its opinions here in the next week or so.
And like abortion, affirmative action has been debated for decades, and this one is not out of California, but out of Texas, as you said, going to the Supreme Court.
Yes, and I think because this is the 2nd time this case is up there, I believe there are the votes at the Supreme Court to either further narrow or completely eliminate affirmative action in college and university admissions. Because there's only 7 members of the court may not be quite so bold. They may take another small step. But once again, I think that the court will take at least another bite out of college and universities' ability to place a lot of weight on race in order to obtain diversity. The court is just very skeptical of giving spots to public universities and colleges based on race or using race as a dominant factor in those decisions, and I think they're going to continue to be skeptical of that in this case.
Legal analyst Byron Henry, thank you for joining us, and those decisions could come this month.
Yeah, very, very soon.